Darren, you have had a torrid week, haven't you? And it's in the newspapers today that David Starkey, the historian, has apologised after an interview he gave with you on your Reasoned channel went viral. What did you make of his apology?
Well, listen, I think Dr. Starkey set out his stall pretty well in his statement. I think, I've certainly learned a lot about recovering from errors and learning from them and being able to move forward with that understanding. But I think what I thought when I read that statement was about the importance of forgiveness, actually, and the importance of, I think, far too often in our current culture, this culture of, I guess, cancellation that we are really, experiencing at the moment, is that forgiveness and being able to accept someone saying, I am sorry for what I said. I did wrong. I did a bad thing. It sounds really reductive and like a really simplistic thing to say, but I think all too often we're all too willing to eradicate someone entirely without hearing them out. So I hope people have heard him out.
And Darren, you have taken legal action against the BBC, or had threatened legal action against BBC Radio 4 after they ran an untrue claim about your website Reason UK, your channel Reason UK, in their main news bulletin. Let's have a little bit of a listen. I'll get you to react off the back.
His latest remarks came during a 50-minute online video with the right-wing commentator Darren Grimes, who describes his website as a safe space for racist and homophobic views.
And Darren, you had said no such thing.
Well, I'm sure you'll understand, Dan, that I'm quite limited on what I can say about this, because I have, as you've said, sent a letter before action to start legal proceedings against the BBC for those comments. The BBC themselves have admitted fault and said that they used Pink News as their source, who I think it's safe to say, and I think you know yourself, Dan, aren't my biggest fans. But listen, it was a real wake-up call for me, because I think the BBC, who has this massive amount of power to really destroy someone's reputation and career, they say they care a lot about fake news and disinformation, yet here we're the biggest purveyors of said fake news and disinformation. So I'm afraid their apology was nothing short, nothing quite like an apology, actually. I genuinely was absolutely flabbergasted when I heard that. What I had actually said was that how many people over the past 4 years since our vote for Brexit have been accused of racism? How many times have people who say that they support a Pride Day, for example, but not a Pride Month, have been accused of homophobia? I certainly have, and I'm a gay man. And how many people that believe in biological sex, J.K. Rowling, have been accused of being transphobic when they're nothing of the sort? These are the points that I was making as far as Reason's concerned, and for the BBC to twist them and misreport them, I think was entirely disingenuous, actually.
Dawn Foster, let me bring you in. What do you make of all of this? It did feel like there was this desperate group of Remainers who wanted to cancel Darren Grimes at any cost. Do you agree?
I think it wasn't just Remainers. I think it was a huge, wide number of people who were very angry. But I think that when it comes to this sort of thing, I think the majority of people...
But they were angry at David Starkey, right? But David Starkey had said what he said on Darren's web channel. Darren admitted he should have challenged him further, potentially, during that interview. But there was a desire to cancel Darren.
When it comes to so-called cancel culture, I think it goes a bit OTT. I think there are a very small number of people who want to cancel people and, have them, pushed out of the public realm. But I think the majority of people, once there's an apology, do actually calm down. I think people are very, very welcome to sincere apologies. And I think that a lot of people who have done wrong, if they come out and say, I am very sorry for this, and it's a genuine apology, most people accept that and just move on.
So did you think Darren dealt with it well, and you accept his apology?
I did. Yeah, I did. I was very glad that Darren came out quite quickly and issued an apology, and that David Starkey has done so now.
Because the thing is, all three of us have been in this position, Dawn, and will be in this position again. And it's horrible being there. It's horrible
Yes.
being there. And I think something has to be done about Twitter and the way that Twitter, via its trending terms, actually encourages actively pile-ons.
Yeah, I think pylons do happen, and very, very occasionally I said something that I think is completely true. Other people disagree with it and pile onto it, and I genuinely just ignore it. If I think I should apologise because I've done something wrong, then I will do so. But generally, it seems to be something that I believe that I think is utterly true and isn't offensive. Other people disagree and try a pylon, and I think that if you don't respond, then people just get bored and move away.
But Darren, I guess it's probably quite fascinating for you because you're now very much a protagonist in the whole culture that you have been railing against and talking about for some time. So I guess maybe you will have even more sympathy for many of the people who are at the centre of these storms in the future.
Well, I mean, I doubt my defund the BBC campaign helped, but listen, I think it's really refreshing to hear Dawn say that, and I genuinely mean that from the bottom of my heart, because it has been horrible, and I can't imagine. It's awful what we look to do to people. We don't look at the human being behind the screen. We just see a person that we disagree with politically and decide that means that we have to destroy that person. And I think it's just such a toxic culture, and we have to, I think, seriously address this and start to stand up and reject it. And I don't know, Dan, if you might be right that perhaps we just can't do that whilst Twitter exists. But I tell you what,
I think it's
maybe
very difficult. And as my colleague Julia Hartley-Brewer said in relation to this instance, actually there's a real danger of free speech being lost if people feel like they can be cancelled for simply having interviewed someone. And of course you can question someone's interviewing technique or ability, or you should have gone a bit harder on this person here, or you should have pulled them up on that. But at the end of the day, we interview people in order to extract their real views, which is what happened here.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's important actually to get unfiltered opinions from people, because I am actually worried about the asphyxiating, chilling effect, really, that this is all having on debate and speech in this country. In my view, this is what talkRADIO does a really good job at doing. This is what I want my channel to do, is to allow the audience to make up their own minds. Now, you can argue that I should have been a host that was more willing to challenge opinions. I admit I was slightly starstruck by a man that I've been watching on the telly since I was a kid, but I still stand by the fact that we must defend the right for people to give their views and for audiences and viewers to make up their own minds.
Indeed. Do you think he's a racist, Darren?
I'm not going to. I have genuinely no idea. I mean, you tell me. I think his apology seemed heartfelt.
Dawn, what do you think?
I think it's a good idea. I think it's very, very important that people are able to be interviewed and that we get their opinions. You know, I think that Darren agrees and everybody else agrees that Darren could have been a little bit harder on David Starkey, but I think it was good to actually hear David Starkey's genuine opinions. And you know, he you know, when it comes to this sort of thing, we do generally want to know what people think about these things, and David Starkey coming out with something that was genuinely racist was quite important, because we now know that he has those views.
Now let's move on to our question of the day. Harry and Meghan, who are now accusing not only the UK of being endemically racist, but also raising issues with the Commonwealth. Dawn, was this the right thing for them to do from their mansion in Los Angeles, given both of them have lived a very privileged life? And actually, I don't think Meghan knows one thing about the Commonwealth.
I think it's very important for Meghan and Harry to come out and talk about the racism that they experienced while they were part of the royal family. Meghan really did feel ostracised while she was pregnant compared to, you know, Kate, and I think it is very important. And I think we do need to think about the Commonwealth and what we do about it. So, you know,
What's wrong with the Commonwealth, Dawn?
the problem with the Commonwealth is basically that it is still part of the British Empire, and I think that empires are past the day, and I think we need to make sure that these places are fully independent rather than, slightly hanging on to Britain.
But Darren, is it part of the British Empire actually? Because it was obviously set up in the 20s, but it developed, and by the time the Queen took the crown, she was absolutely certain that this was going to be a forward-looking organisation for peace-loving folk around the world, and actually, in a way, for the monarchy to be able to right some of the wrongs of the British Empire. That was the whole point of the Commonwealth, was it not?
Well, since Her Majesty the Queen inherited and took over as head of the Commonwealth, I think it's been completely transformed. I'm someone who is quite proudly pro-monarchy, but I reckon even the most staunch Republican, Dan, could recognise that the Commonwealth is quite clearly a success story. I mean, judge it on the affection it's held by those, I think, 54 member countries. That's about 2.4 billion people. And I think it's one of the greatest achievements of Her Majesty the Queen's 68-year reign. I just genuinely think what Harry and Meghan have said flies completely in the face of the modern day Commonwealth. No one is forced to be a part of it. All the nations there are there because they want to be as independent nation states, and that includes those nations that once suffered the cruelty, really, of slavery. So I reckon Harry should give his granny a break, to be honest, and just concentrate on the Invictus Games, if you ask me.
Well, Darren, I'm actually going one step further today. I'm calling on the Queen to strip Harry and Meghan of their titles now. I think actually they are now doing damage to the monarchy and the Commonwealth, and actually this is yet another public challenge against their family. It's fine. They have total freedom of speech. They can do what they want, but why not do it as private citizens, Darren?
Well, I think, yes, I to be honest with you, it did stick in the craw for me, and I imagine it did for many of your listeners today, to be lectured on the Commonwealth, this organisation that the pair of them dropped their duties for, and their commitment to that organisation to head for the Hollywood Hills. I mean, come on.
Well, indeed. And actually, overwhelmingly in our poll, Dawn, 92% of our listeners today saying that Harry and Meghan should be stripped of their royal titles. But Dawn, I want to go back to this issue of the Commonwealth with you, okay, because you clearly have an issue with it. You clearly equate it with the British Empire. I'm from New Zealand, so I grew up in a country that is a member of the Commonwealth, that has an indigenous population that was treated pretty appallingly by the British Crown when they first came to New Zealand in 1840 and signed the Treaty of Waitangi. But Dawn, over the past 70 years, since the 1950s, which, by the way, coincides probably not coincidentally with the time that the Queen came to the throne, New Zealand has dealt with these issues. We have had reckoning after reckoning. There have been land settlements. There have been apologies. There have been great national discussions. And in fact, you know what? The Māori culture now, as a result of those discussions, is absolutely front and centre of New Zealand day-to-day life. And as a result, it's one of the most multicultural societies and most tolerant societies in the world. What do Harry and Meghan want to do? Take us right back to the start of that discussion. We've done it.
I think essentially what they want to do is make sure that all of these countries are fully independent rather than dependent on the Crown. And, they have transformed quite a lot. And I think that if they were independent, it would mean that they had a little bit more freedom to talk about their own laws, to talk about their own society.
But Dawn, they're actually asking to have a reckoning, to have some type of uncomfortable discussion. This is their words about the past.
Yeah, I totally agree with your poll. I think that Harry and Meghan have decided they're not part of the royal family, and there is no reason for them to continue to have.
So you want them out too?
Yeah, absolutely. If they have decided to leave the monarchy, then I don't see why they still have titles.
This halfway house is just insane, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that the big problem is that they have left the royal family, and yet still every time they breathe or make a comment, it is put into the media, when actually they should, they wanted to be left alone by the media, and yet they're still constantly popping up in it. So
but that's because, Dawn, they're making videos which they then send out to the media demanding that the Queen does something about the Commonwealth. I mean, come on,
it
they
is-
are
it
putting
is- it is
themselves
very, very
front and
bizarre.
centre in the public spotlight. I wish we could ignore them, but they remain the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. We cannot if they're going to make these types of outlandish calls.
Exactly, and I think that if you did strip them of their titles, then maybe the media would give them less attention, and they would be, a normal family
Yeah.
who aren't
Meghan
represented in the media.
can go back to her terribly over-the-top acting in some terrible Netflix series, and Harry can go back to doing
Nothing.
what was it he did, Darren?
I
Any
don't know,
ideas?
helicopter
The Invictus Games, to be fair to him, was very good. Right, he should stick to that and stop trying to lecture us on history.
That is Darren Grimes, the founder of Reasoned UK from the right, and Dawn Foster, the journalist at Jacobin magazine from the left. What do you reckon? Should Harry and Meghan be stripped of their royal titles after challenging the Queen over the Commonwealth? 0344 499 1000 is my phone number. 0344 499 1000. We'll hear from you in just a couple of minutes.